Hey, welcome to the next episode of the Hot With Us podcast. Today, I'm here with a special guest, Mr. Keith Mims. Keith, give a little bit of background on yourself so people know who you are, and then this is a special episode. We're talking about trucking. So I hope you all enjoy this episode. But Keith, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Well, in short, let's start with played NCAA football, went from there into corporate America. And I'm sorry, let me go back a little bit. Before corporate America, I did 10 years in the military, U.S. Army, logistics. That's how I fell into transportation, logistics, supply chain. I did that for a while and then branched out and started my own business, which crept into dispatching within the transportation umbrella. And that's what I'm currently doing now. And subsequently, that's how me and Daniel met.
Yeah. So for everybody here, you used to do logistics in the military, right? That was like your job. Like,
correct.
So, ton of experience into this. So, like I said, this is kind of a special episode for everybody listening here. I came across Keith. So, for everybody who doesn't know, I started trucking. Here, I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint so y'all can see how young I was. But here we are. So, I actually started trucking back in 2016. I got my CDL, April 28, 2016. This is an interesting story because when I was taking my driving CDL course, my trainer's like, "You don't belong here." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You don't belong here." I'm like, "All right. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that compliment." But I used to drive doubles, 48 foots, 40. And this is me driving a set of doubles. But it was definitely an interesting time back in 2016, 2017. I was a company driver, and I used to work a lot. And this is back when I found out my wife was pregnant. So it's kind of like my motivation to get into business. I got all my stuff. So for everybody who doesn't know, we're kind of going to cover a lot of the basics of trucking in this video and kind of talk about my background and my experience in trucking through the time lapse and kind of led into real estate. That's where I met Keith. I'm going to tell you a story that happened. When I started my trucking company, we're going to kind of go over the basics, but you kind of have to get your authority, and Keith will correct me if I'm wrong in this order or whatever, but you have to get your authority through the FMCSA, which I can't even tell you what it's called. You know what it's called, Keith?
I do, but not offhand. I'm not that good.
So FMCSA, you can look it up. You got to go to start a trucking company from scratch. You got to go to the FMCSA. You got to submit paperwork, your LLC, your EIN, and very, very simple. You got to pay a fee and wait 30 days. It's it's like the simplest process ever. But doing this as an entrepreneur, like I said, I kind of figured it out. Next problem was getting a truck. I got a truck. And I'm going to show you this picture too. I'm going to pull it up right here. This was my truck. This is the day I drove it home. I took a picture. This is my Cascadia 12 or DD14 with no camper. This is the day I took it home, parked in front of my house. Can't really see that, but that was the day I took that thing home. So it was yellow as an old Penske truck I bought. I figured out how to buy that, and that's, I think, one of the troubleshoots of entrepreneurship. You kind of figure stuff out. So I got a loan from my bank, bought the truck. They paid cash, and I was paying a loan to them. I get my authority established. I get my truck, and I'm like, okay, I'm good to go. So I heard there was loadout trailers. So loadout trailers are where you can essentially pick up a trailer. Since I didn't have a trailer, you see, there's no trailer in that picture. No trailer whatsoever. I know I can get a loadout trailer, which is essentially you pick up a trailer, take it to some place across the country, use their new trailers, but they give you like a week or 2 weeks to deliver it so you can pick up loads. So I remember my first day of work, I told my wife, and this is after I had to wait 30 days to get my FMCSA approval. I had to wait about 30 days to get the truck and everything in order. I had to get insurance, which I had to put like $3,500 down, and then I'm legal. So I told my wife, I'm going to work. I'm going to work today. Like after 70 days of waiting, I'm going to work today. So I was really, really excited. I go drive to work. I get on my phone, get on the load board, and I can't get a freaking load. I remember I was like calling everybody and like, "Oh, you have a new authority. What's your MC number? You have a new authority." Oh, I got set up with the load, and then they're like, "Oh, your FC authority isn't 30 days aged. We can't even give you a load." I'm like, I have to wait another 30 days for this. So I ended up talking to my factoring company, and my factoring hooked me up with Keith, and that's how I met Keith, however many years ago. Go ahead.
Can you tell them what a factoring company is?
So a factoring company, essentially all your loads are set up on a net 30, which means that if you picked up a load today, delivered it, today's Friday, if I delivered it on Tuesday, I can then turn in my load to the factoring company. They would pay me within 24 hours. But if I didn't have a factoring company, it would be 30 to 45 days before I can receive that payment for that load. And if you're thinking about that, man, that doesn't make sense. most businesses operate off a net 30. So you have to have like 30 days of operating income to run, pay your drivers, pay your insurance, pay your fuel. So factoring company kind of helps mitigate all that stuff, so you get paid within 24 hours. My factoring company is like, hey, I have a dispatcher, you might be able to help you out. Go talk with them. I ended up calling Keith the next day.
This show is sponsored by HiveMind CRM. It is more than just a CRM. It is a real estate and business mastermind that comes with an all-in-one CRM. You can have unlimited websites and users. You can call, text, RVM, and email all in one user interface. And you can set up custom automations for any type and multiple businesses. 65% of companies start using a CRM system within the first 5 years of business. Once implemented, the HiveMind will save you on marketing, give you more time, and make more money. One of our users had his first $100,000 month using our system in June. We want to see you automate and accelerate your business. Text us at 210-972-1842 for future meetings, and of course to get our $1 course on how to make more than 6 figures on one land deal. You can schedule your free demo today at hivemindcrm.io.
And this is like right after I was crying in the parking lot because I couldn't get a load. And I met Keith. We've known each other ever since, man. It's been maybe 5 years. It's been 5 years, I think.
Yeah, but going on 5 years. But I do want the audience to listen to the story, because I believe it's very important to mention when you talk about relationships and you talk about your financial state at the time. You mentioned about you being anxious, but also, like I said, if you can just give them that short story on how we met and what happened. I think that's very interesting. When Daniel called me, we spoke. Usually have a spiel that I give people when they call for my services. Back then and even now, I'm totally referral basis. So the factoring company, what they do, what Daniel explained, when you are really good at what you do, it means you make money. Big companies, they like that, basically, right? I mean, who wouldn't? So if I'm making the client money, that means that I'm making the factoring company money as well. Just throwing there a little bit of what Daniel missed out. What the factory company normally charges you right now, it's anywhere between, they're getting real competitive now. So it's like anywhere between 1.5% to 3%. Back when me and Daniel met, the average was about 4 or 5%. So they take that percentage out right off the top, and then they pay you within 24 hours or whatever your contract states. When the conversation between me and Daniel, our very first one, I told him how it was going to be and everything like that. When I booked Daniel's first load, he didn't like it. And we, let's say very friendly and keep this PG, we got into a little spat. I'm not sure if you hung up on me or we just hung up, you decided to part ways at that moment.
It was after like a week or two. It wasn't after the first call.
I think it was it could have been. It could have been, but I know that happened. And the reason why I'm pointing this out, guys, is because a lot of times, like I mentioned, if you're waiting 30 days, sometimes even 60 days, you got to pay that insurance. You still got to pay your truck note. Let's say if you had a trailer, you still have to pay that note as well, but there's no money coming in. And so you meet somebody, like me, a dispatcher or whatever, and we're trying to help. A lot of times people have these thoughts in their head that, oh my God, my first load, now that I'm with a professional dispatcher, my first load is going to be $1 million. And when it's not, you kind of get upset, or like I say, your anxiety kicks in. And that's what happened between me and Daniel. And we got into a little spat. And so he decided that he was going to do it on his own after that. Already tried that. So go ahead.
So, and this is for, I'm pretty sure it was like a week or two in, because I remember I give everybody a shot early on. So it was probably a week or two in. I just didn't know what I was doing. There was a disconnect from what I knew as a truck driver for 2 years, working as a company driver. You saw me in that picture, to actually having your own company that you don't know till you're out in the streets. So, I have another story with this too. So my first load that he sent me on, we're in Georgia. So I was in Atlanta. I had my truck. He was trying to find me loads with to get a trailer early on, because it was difficult. But I ended up getting a trailer somehow. I can't even remember the story, but I was driving through the back roads of Georgia and I missed my turn, because everybody that any of those truck driving, like, you have to have special GPSs, and I was driving through the back roads, and I thought I was okay at it because I was used to doing that as my company driver. So I missed my turn. I went back to do a U-turn and I got stuck and I blocked the road for like an hour and a half. And then the fire department came and I heard them coming, and I knew if once the fire department came, I was getting a ticket. So I remember I had to somebody with a pickup truck ended up dragging. Lucky I wasn't carrying a load, but they dragged my trailer out of the ditch, out of the side curb area, and I was able to get out before the police came and gave me a ticket. And that was very enlightening.
I remember that. And also, let me interject in there real quick. Another good point. Can you throw up that picture again of your first truck?
Yeah, I'll throw it up. There it is, in all its glory.
So for all intents and purposes, I know he mentioned that you guys can see that he didn't have a trailer, but this is real important as well. What you see is a day cab, right? He doesn't have a sleeper in there. So when we talked, I think there was a disconnect with that as well, if I remember.
Yeah, there was. I didn't know any better.
Because I thought, somebody coming to me saying that they want to do over the road, I'm assuming that they have a sleeper, and he didn't. Yeah, I think Daniel, you're probably right. I think we did go for at least a week, because I know that's when I found out that he had a day cab, and I'm dispatching him, over the road, basically without going into off into a tangent. People out there, when you go and you don't know, ask questions. He went and bought a truck, which, congratulations to him. He did get it started. Even when I told him, I didn't, hop all over him. I just explained to him, hey, that was a very, very expensive mistake. We did get over that hurdle. But I just wanted people to point that out, that when you're coming from a company who has maybe $4 or $5 million budget.
Yeah.
There's no way you can compete or compare when you're coming out your own company day one and expecting similar or the same. That's a very, very big message I would definitely like to get across. You got to have the right equipment. You got to have the right mindset, and you got to know what you want to do. A guy coming from doing LTL going into OTR, I know it may not sound like it's that much of a difference, but it really is. I mean, it's like somebody coming out of baseball going to go play basketball.
Yeah. For everybody here, like I said, I wanted to do this episode because I really wanted to make a video about my experience in trucking in general, just because I'm forgetting all this stuff as it comes, because it's been so many years now. I haven't even driven a truck in like three years now, so it's kind of leaving my mind. So I wanted to make a video kind of how I started, stuff I came up with, stuff I've seen people experience with. And you can take these lessons in any business form and experience. Like, you got to know all the facts before you start something, anything you do. And like I said, I kind of learned, this was like my first dose of business, and I learned a lot by failing.
Well, I wouldn't, and I will tell you this, right? It's not by failing, just by making mistakes. And that's one of them. I mean, as the story goes on, guys, you're going to see, let's say this, I'm not trying to point out him as him being a failure, obviously, right? Because it's not a failure. But I do want to highlight, as he's telling the story and what this video is about, that, number one, if you guys have ever done this, or somebody that has, you're not the only one that makes these mistakes. That's number one. And number two, as the story goes on and we get to the end, you're going to see that even though there was a lot of mistakes made, there was a lot of money made. And and when you do that and you're able to learn on the fly and get over these hurdles, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
There's so many. I have like so many stories in my head that it brings back a lot of like pain. It brings back a lot of pain. It was a lot of pain and fun memories too. But we have me and Keith have a lot of stories. But when you first start out, you don't understand and realize what the underlying cost of things really what they really are. You got to pay money for like monthly costs, insurance, fuel, IFTA, factoring, dispatching, equipment repairs. Something you don't have to think about is tolls, fuel tax, IFTA. You got to keep track of your total miles that you did in each state, and file those quarterly. That we got to pay tax on all those stuff.
What's on your permits?
Oh man, this is so many expenses. And I think this is one of the big things that a lot of people don't realize. And me and Keith have seen so many businesses pop up, and they're gone within 30 days.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And thousands. It happens all the time.
Let me just throw this in there real quick. I know a lot of you guys probably listening and saying, well, Keith, since you're so professional, you should have told him. If you heard me when I was talking about the day cab, I assumed, and that was probably that is my fault. But I work with so many people and have worked with so many people who come in the game, at least knowing half of what I thought he knew. That's where a lot of these stories that Daniel's talking about that I'm not sure if we're going to get to all of them. But a lot of these stories, me and him, we kind of experienced it together. Even though I knew, I just didn't know he didn't know. And we were traveling down this road, and I'm basically aiding him, or helping him, assisting him. And as things were going on, he would say, "Hey, well, what about this?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, you didn't know that you needed a permit?" "Yes, guy, you need a permit." So we would have to stop, pause, handle our business, take care of what needed to be taken care of so we can be legal, and then we move on. And a lot of, like I said, a lot of those times were expensive lessons, but we learned and we got through it.
It was a lot of learning lessons because I just didn't know anything. So for everybody here, like I ran over the road in that truck over the road for a few months. I did that for a few months. I did not like that. It was definitely an experience. Where do you sleep when you have no bed? You sleep at a hotel. You sleep in the truck. You sleep at the dock if you can't get a hotel. It's not the most comfortable living situation, but I remember I got pulled over in Michigan with my day cab. And they're like, "You have Georgia plates. What are you doing out here in Michigan with no sleeper?" I'm like, "Man, I'm working, man. Leave me alone." And they thought I was smuggling. So they had me pulled over for like 2 hours, and they made me like empty out my whole day cab, and they searched everything. They're looking for drugs or something. And it was one of those things where like now me knowing what I know now, I wouldn't consent to a search, but they just held me up for like 2 hours for nothing. And it was one of those things where like me, the law-abiding citizen that I am, I'm like, "Yeah, I got nothing. Go ahead and search." And I'm like, I think I missed my pickup appointment because of freaking messing with the police.
But I will give Daniel a lot of credit. I've had, I can't even count, hundreds of clients and also potential clients that come to me and say, what they don't want to do. And the credit that I give Daniel is once he understood what he was up against, I mean, you really just can't go back to the dealer and say, "Well, I don't want this truck. Give me another one," right? Because it's not that type of party. But he stuck it through. He stuck it through until we got to a point where I told him, "Hey, you've made some money. It's time for a change." He had the credit, he had the money, and he was able to get a secondary truck. I'm sorry, Daniel. I think I don't know if I.
No, you're right. You're right on point, man. This is my secondary. I don't know if this is my second or third truck, but this is one of my other trucks. As you can see, I got a sleeper this time. See?
Oh, Daniel, that was your third.
That was my third. Okay.
You don't have the picture of the second one?
Oh, my orange one. I might have to find it real quick.
I don't know if you're gonna look for it or not, but let me tell you with the orange truck. So I got them connected with a third party financing group. No, actually went to Snyder.
Yeah, I went to Snyder.
Yeah, but we did have a third party finance group. Those people out in Cali. Anyway, we went to Snyder here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's actually probably about 5 miles from me down the street. And I remember that day, if it was yesterday, because it was raining cats and dogs. And we were out there in and out of trucks. But we ended up finding one that was really, really good. And the beauty about that one was that the one with the computer?
Yeah, I got it right here. So for everybody here, I'm gonna pull up this picture. This is my second truck. You'll recognize a few faces here. So this is Pace Morby and Eric Sage. I drove this to Phoenix. This is when I met Steve Trank. So this is my orange truck behind us in the background. So you can see I started doing real estate while I was still doing trucking, and I drove this all the way to Phoenix for a training. And I remember Keith dispatched me there. I was like, "Keith, I need to go to Phoenix. Find me a load there. I'll be there for a couple days," and I didn't drive back.
Yeah,
There's my orange truck.
Yeah, and that truck, when we first got it, when he first got it, it ran pretty good, but it was in and out of the shop, and we were trying to figure out, okay, what's going on. It's that death. I don't want to get too much into that because there's could be a right or wrong in these details.
We're not going that way.
So I'm not going to say, I'm not going to go too much into detail about that. But what we did do, we actually ended up finding and correcting the issue. Let's just say that. and that truck ran after we got it corrected. That truck ran almost 18 months plus without any major.
Just the oil change every month and a half or so, and that was it.
And we were rolling. That's actually when Daniel, I think you did, correct me if I'm wrong, you may have did 1 or 2 loads with the day cab, but you basically parked that day cab, and we actually we found a girlfriend and boyfriend team driver to put in the truck. So now Daniel goes from, I would like to say, he went from self-employed to business owner.
And that was a big transition for me too, because I hated being away from. I hated that day cab a lot. It was a pain in the butt when I was out on the road. Getting the hotels I thought would be fun. The cost really tallied up, and it was a pain trying to find truck parking. Truck parking alone is its own issue. Everywhere you go, if you're on the road, you recognize that. And if you don't know, just start looking. You'll pay attention probably after listening to this, that they really don't have places to park very often. So like if you live in the city and there's just trucks parked on random streets, it's because they have a truck parking issue. Mostly in every metropolitan area, they have a truck parking issue. There's nowhere for them to go. And usually they got to deliver inside the city, but they can't park anywhere inside the city. It's just it has its own issues. But yeah, getting the couple that were a team, I think was definitely a turning point. Like I said, for everybody here in the nutshell, I ran the trucking company for 2 years. I started doing real estate. I started delving into real estate a year into it, and I got my first deal 7 months. So I was doing trucking and real estate at the same time when all this happened. I think, and one of the big turning points was getting the team drivers in there, because I was able to focus on other stuff.
Now that's where, again, for the people that's really listening to this, wanting to do this, or maybe you're listening to this and you want to revamp, but I would tell you that number one, like I said previously, basically just stick it out, stick it through all the hard times, all the stuff he didn't want to do, all the stuff that, is difficult, and being away from his family. He mentioned his wife was pregnant, and I felt bad, but I couldn't tell him, because I knew that, and I kept telling him every other day or every time we talked, bro, if you do this, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I had to keep motivating him, but he did stick it through. So once we got to a point to where he can be at home, and there was another person in the truck running the truck, we were able at that time. I believe he was almost close to a year now of MC Authority. We ended up getting. We actually ended up bidding on this contract with the USPS mail. Man, Daniel, those were some good times, bro. That was,
that was the most money I made for a very long time, very, very quickly. I think we're getting paid. Just that one truck was bringing in like 30,000 a month. It was crazy.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit more, because remember our first contract was 13. We signed it for 13,000 a week. Well, I guess I'm saying gross.
Yeah. And I remember we did 120 in 3 months. So it was like 30 to 40,000 a month just with that one truck. And that gave me the ability to get the third truck.
Exactly. So the guys out there, whether you're driving right now, or you're an owner operator, what I'm trying to say, and what I'm building up to say, is the most important thing is finding a driver that's going to understand what you're trying to do. They do the right thing, and they treat your truck as if it's their own. But overall, we all have to, in somewhat shape, form, and fashion, become that team player. Everybody, because everybody's affected. As soon as you have either the person at the top or the person at the bottom don't do what they're supposed to do, the whole company can come crashing down. But as you can hear the story, when you have people that are doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing it, there is a lot of money to be made in trucking. I'm not sure what the fiscal year 2022, but I do know 2021, the trucking industry was $878 billion. And let me say the trucking, let me say the transportation industry. So obviously, that breaks down into logistics and transportation and everything like that. But just think about it, $800+ billion. So if you can position yourself for at least 1% of that in some way, that you can, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to be made.
Yeah. So one of the struggles I went through was and I kind of mentioned it before, but driver retention. And this is where it wasn't even my fault. a driver shortage is what they say, but the problem is that there's not qualified drivers. I think that's the problem. It's not that there's not drivers, there's just not qualified drivers. So you, especially starting as a new company, you have to have the insurance. You have to pass the insurance. Like before I did anything else, I would send the drivers to the insurance. If the insurance would approve them, then I would talk to them, because it wasn't even a point to talk to them without the insurance approving them, because the insurance approved them. I can't even put them in the truck, you know. And it was one of those things where like what was your requirements for a driver? I'm like, number one requirement is that I pass insurance. Other than that, I really didn't care, because I was desperate for drivers, because at this point I had trucks moving. I tried to put that day cab as work as much as possible. Nobody liked it, and we only got it moving whenever somebody's truck was in the shop, and like, hey, you got to use this for now. You want to make money. I kind of forced people to use it whenever I had to. But and the thing is that day cab, I think it hurt a lot for a long time, because I still had to pay insurance. I couldn't get rid of it I couldn't just, and I had to insure it. Like if I didn't insure it, like I could get like repossessed, because I had an uninsured commercial vehicle somewhere. So it was crazy times, and like you didn't even know. So I paid insurance throughout the whole time I had it. I rarely used it once we got the sleepers. But it was one of those things where like it was there, it was a backup truck, and we just kind of kept it as a backup truck as needed. But drivers, man, drivers were crazy. I have a ton of crazy driver stories. You want to go through a couple of those?
I don't know. Well, hold on. Before we do, let me say this. Even though he's saying the heartache of holding on to that day cab, I will say that it did help us out. I mean, he did say that, but I'm telling you, I'm reinforcing that. Having that day cab helped us out at times when we really, really needed it. That's also, a part of driver retention as well, is that, when the truck goes down, if that driver isn't making any money, they'll split, they'll go to another company or what have you. So having that day cab, it was actually a blessing more than it was a curse. And it was only, let's say, a curse, or it really fell, kind of fell on the company in a negative way when all the trucks were down or we didn't have any drivers. Even though, yes, we made money with the team, you have to understand reality, that people's lives and their livelihood, it still goes on, regardless if they're making money or not. And that's something that we couldn't stop, and you're not going to be able to stop either. People's livelihood and what they do on their off time, all of that does affect you. So picking a driver that doesn't have, something from their past, or, doesn't have a life or something like that, is going to be really hard to find that person that just wakes up in the morning, gets in the truck, gets there on time, comes back, and nothing happens. That's a needle in a haystack type of driver. And so what Daniel's about to get into is the point where life was good when we had the team, and then we had a driver in the white Cascadia that he just showed. Life was really good. But once we lost the team, and then we lost the driver in that white truck, we were scrambling. Mind you, at that time, I still had several other clients that I'm taking care of that were going through sometimes similar, or sometimes they just were going through their own things. And that's my job, is that if my clients don't make money, I'm not making any money. So I always assert myself as a team member into their company to try and help. It's just that being friends with Daniel, he took up a lot of my time, but I'm not complaining though. I'm not complaining.
And this is one of the big reasons why I like Keith, is that he didn't sugarcoat anything with me, and it was more than dispatching, because most of the time, if you talk to people that do extra stuff or third-party contractors, all they do is their job. They don't want to participate in anything else that you have, and they'll just do what they're tasked to do, and that's it. And Keith really kind of like helped me out in a lot of different situations that it wasn't really his job to. Wasn't really his job to. So I kind of want to show you a picture of drivers. not the drivers specifically, but just dealing with drivers.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this is the underlying part of being a company owner, is that drivers will sometimes mess up. And this one, he was supposed to turn left versus right, and the street was not meant for him to turn right. So he ended up getting stuck in a ditch loaded. That's like probably 30,000 pounds that shifted in the truck. So there's always
If it had been a full load, probably would have tipped over.
yeah, exactly.
That would have been even worse because then you got to bring the cranes out there and everything else. So again, guys, the importance of finding a good driver. I mean, if you're going to drive yourself, then I would always suggest, and not just because he's my friend and he's right here on the video, but you got to really listen to his story. I mean, like I said, he was out on the road in a day cab with a pregnant wife at home. I mean, come on, it doesn't get, you can't ask a man to sacrifice more than that. I mean, that's just, and he stuck it through, and that's how he was able to make it. So if it is you got to have that type of warrior mentality, like Malcolm X, by any means necessary. In the military, just get the mission done. If you do have drivers, you're going to have to seek out those drivers, and it's going to be a trial and error. It's not going to be like you get your first one and oh my God, things are going to be perfect. I know you guys see my face light up when he starts talking about the drivers that we've had in the past. I mean, I don't even know what story he wants to tell you guys, but I'm telling you, I hope he picks something that's not going to freak anybody out from not doing this, because we've had some experiences where it'll make you just be like, you know what, give me a blue smock and I'll go work at Walmart. I mean, it really does sometimes get that bad, depending on the people you meet. I mean, we all know there's some characters out there in the society. So I don't know which one you want to tell, bro, but
my favorite, this is my favorite story just because I enjoy it. This is me and Keith's story too. So me and Keith, we've done a lot of fun stuff. Fun stuff. So
which one you gonna say?
So this one, he doesn't, I mean, he knows the story because he was there, but so this one, I told Keith, I'm like, I have to get rid of this driver. I think he's doing drugs in the truck. I have to get rid of him. Mind you, he passed the drug test and he did good work, but he was just sporadic. He was very up and down type thing. So we told him to go to this truck stop because Keith got him a load to unload nearby, and like, oh, just go to this truck stop and wait for the next load. And he foresaw that we were gonna let him go, and getting your equipment back is always a questionable thing. There's plenty of stories if you talk to in the trucking space of people just leave you at a truck stop in the middle of Kansas and give you a bus ticket home. That happens quite often, but luckily he was from Georgia. So we told him to go to the truck stop, and then I had his weekly check. I was like, hey, go inside. This wasn't far from my house. Like, I'll go get you a weekly check and I'll meet you inside. So for whatever reason, he emptied out his truck right at that point. I'm like, okay, I'll give you a weekly check. So I called him, and me and Keith, it felt like a
sting operation,
undercover sting operation. So I'm watching him. Me and him are watching him. Keith's in the car. Keith drops me off. I have a spare key to the truck, and I'm watching him unload the truck. He parks it. As soon as he parks it, I'm watching him. He goes inside, and he's like, hey, I'm inside. He's like, dude, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Wait. Hold on. Just pause right there. So let me just try to, because some people may not understand what you just said. So let me just go over that a little bit, right? So that you guys can understand. What Daniel was saying is, when you have a driver, right, that's driving your equipment, there is a high probability chance that if you were to tell that driver that you're going to fire him, and let's say he's on 20 rolling down coming to Atlanta, let's say you live in Atlanta and he's coming to Atlanta, but he's when you call him, he's on 20 and he's in Jackson, Mississippi. Well, once he hangs up the phone, there's a good probability that he's going to leave it at a Walmart, leave it on the side of the road, leave it at the just anywhere, and just leave the keys in there and haul and just go wherever he wants to go. Some people,
drive it home. They'll drive the truck home.
Yeah, they'll drive it all the way home, or they'll get a buddy to come pick them up or something like that. Some people even go as far as to start selling some of your equipment off the truck. Like they'll start selling the tires off of it, or the turbo, or something like that. all this time you're thinking you're at home, right? And or in your office, and you're thinking that he's driving back to the home terminal, and he's not, he's up to no good. So I had told Daniel that and said, hey, what you want to do, because Daniel was going to call him and tell him, hey, bro, I can't do this no more, right? I told him, don't do that. Don't do that, especially with somebody sporadic like that, and we don't know where he is mentally. Now, going back to what Daniel was saying that I want you guys to pay attention to as well, as he's telling the story, right? Daniel is going to fire him, right? He's going to let him go. However, he has a sixth sense that may happen, but we never told him. So what he did was he wanted to jump the gun and quit. So he was trying to quit, even not telling us. We were trying to fire him, not telling him. So what he did was he didn't know we were there. So we're there watching him empty his truck out, his linen, pillows, personal items. He was taking it out of the truck and putting it into his personal truck. So that's what Daniel's saying, that what we were witnessing, we were watching it. Okay.
So I told him to meet me inside. I'll be there in 5 minutes. So while I watch him walk inside, I have a spare key. I hop in the truck and I drive away. And there's a couple funny stories in this one, but as I drive away, I exit the truck stop, and I cut somebody off because I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I don't want this dude to catch me. So I cut somebody off. This is a side story within the story, the dude I cut off ended up calling the company number, which was me, and told them that some a-hole cut him off.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the side story within the story, is that he called me to tell me that I cut him off. So that's the funny story inside the story. But I drove it home, and I'm like, Keith, let's go. So I get back. I get back to where my house is. I drop the truck off, and I'm like, Keith, I dropped my keys. He's like, where'd you drop your keys? I'm like, dude, I must have dropped them by the trailer. He's like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, no, I think I dropped them by the trailer. So we drive back because I was going to move my car and go back and go meet him eventually. But now I have to delay him even more to go get my keys. So we're driving back, and it's probably like a 10-15 minute turnaround from where we dropped the truck off, and then we're heading back. And the good driver calls me. He's like, go ahead.
Before he calls you, remember. So going back, right, we're driving back, and I'm giving Daniel all types of hell. I'm giving him, right? So right when the driver calls him, and he says, at that time he noticed that the truck was gone, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's telling Daniel, hey, I think somebody stole your truck. We need to call the police or whatever the case may be. And so they have their conversation, and Daniel tells them, saying, no, I'll call the cops. Don't worry about it. And then and mind you, I'm driving because we're in my personal vehicle now. We dropped the commercial truck off. We're in my vehicle, and Daniel's in the passenger seat. And Daniel proceeds to say, okay, I'm headed back to you. I'll deal with it. We'll deal with it when I get there. Daniel never hangs up the phone.
The show is sponsored by The List Guys. Do you need more leads in your local or virtual market? 1 in 10 small businesses don't invest in any kind of marketing. The List Guys have over 35 plus list types to choose from, and you can mix and match any list or criteria. We also use the skip trace list and provide up to 7 numbers and email addresses. Every list you purchase will be scrubbed against previous purchases. The List Guys are here to save you time. Contact the List Guys today at www.1listguys.com. That's www.1listguys.com.
Yeah, I never hung up the phone. I'm like, man, we should have steal a truck from my own driver. And now he wants to call the police. I'm trying to tell him not to call the police because I stole my own truck from my own driver. And
saying this, all of a sudden he goes, hello. Daniel just hangs up the phone and throws the phone down on it, like starts screaming. And I'm like, oh my God. But I'm gonna tell you something. We got there, and I knew the first thing we needed to do was get his keys, or at least try to look for his keys. This guy never saw me, but he knows what Daniel looks like. He doesn't know what I look like. So I park on the other side of the parking lot. No, I dropped you off.
You dropped me off.
Yeah, I dropped you off, and then so I go through the parking lot, and lo and behold, I don't know if you guys are religious or whatever, but his keys are right there, right where the truck was, and I picked them up. I texted him and said, "I got your keys."
Yeah, and I think I handled that. I handled that part of it, but my dropping my keys, not cutting somebody off on the way out, telling the driver that I stole my truck from my own driver, and the police situation. That was the culmination of the story. But check this out. After I got my keys, I drove back to the truck. There was a powder of like white substance in the truck.
Yeah.
So I ended up calling the police, and they tested it to see if it was cocaine or not. Because I'm driving a commercial vehicle. If I drive this to my parking lot where I park the truck, if I get pulled over, like now I just gotta call the police right then and there and have them double check it, because that was the craziest story out of everything that happened in the last those 2 years of operating a trucking company. But it's funny now. It's funny now, but it's one of those things where like I went through a lot.
Yes, and I would probably say that's probably top 3 of crazy stories. But mind you, guys, there's a whole, we could sit here for about another day or two telling you stories. It's ridiculous of the things that we had to go through to make things happen. What we did, and everything. We try to take care of business as best we could, to keep the wheels rolling, to keep the money coming in. And sometimes you might find yourself in those situations where sometimes the right thing isn't the right thing, and you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. A lot of I learned so much about trucking. I learned so much about dealing with random people. I was like marriage counselor to the couple. I mean, I had to talk about sports with the sports driver. He's wanted to talk. I mean, I dealt with a lot of different stuff. I probably went through maybe 15 drivers. I have another crazy story driver too. It's not like crazy, but it was one of those things where like, I hired a guy, he passed insurance. I put him on the first day of driving for training, and then the insurance called me while he was driving, and like, "Oh, you haven't let this guy start, have you?" I'm like, "No, I let him start." And he's literally in the driver's seat next to me, and he's like, "Oh, he has a I don't know if it was like an accident or something on his license, but like, oh, he can't drive right now. Like, if he's caught driving, we're gonna have to like let you go as an insurance provider, and I'm sending you a document right now saying that you never let him drive your truck." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Bro, you got to pull over right now.
Yeah, that
You got
actually.
to pull over right now, because insurance says if you were caught driving, they're gonna drop me as an insurance provider."
Yeah, and that really goes to another degree, as far as the experiences we had with your factoring company, the experiences that we've had with your insurance company. I mean, remember, if you remember, we switched, factoring company.
A year in, and we switched to insurance a year in. We switched factoring probably about a year in too, around the same time.
And that was, I mean, they were good people. It was just negotiation. I mean, it's nothing, no wild story on that one, but just letting you guys know that, there's always going to be nuances. There's going to be changes. You just have to roll with the punches, and not everything is going to be just, really, really just close, tight knit and everything works perfect. We were trying to optimize the business at the time. We were trying to get them, try to get the most bang for our buck, so that we can keep going. The goal was to get to 5 trucks, and we actually did get there.
We did.
Because he purchased 3, and we had added on 2 owner operators, which I don't know if you want to get into that part, because it really doesn't it really doesn't. It's not. It doesn't really aid in the reason why we're telling these stories or doing the video. But let's just say that we did meet our goal. But as Daniel was saying, at the same time, he was the mastermind and cooking up the sauce in the kitchen for Hive Mind. So I'm calling him, telling him, day to day, telling him, what's going on, the loads, the money, what's going on. And he's what you see, the logo and everything. And guys that know him from Hive Mind, he was simultaneously, that's how his mind was working. In the daytime, he would be on the phone with me about trucking. At nighttime, he'd be, dead set on putting together this Hive Mind concept. And well, now, back then it was a concept, now it's not. It's the real deal now. So
one thing I really want to mention too is that we never talk, and for good reason, we never talked about like rates on this video. A lot of people talk a lot of crap about they make a certain amount of money and underlying they make a lot of money, or they do $10,000 a week in trucking and all that stuff. The truth is about all that stuff is most of the time it's lies. They don't actually tell you about the true cost of trucking. A lot of people don't understand. Like when I had 5 trucks, I was paying $10,000 a month in insurance. So I had to make $10,000 just to cover insurance. That didn't cost fuel. I mean, I still had to pay fuel. I still had to pay the driver. Still had to do all that stuff. So I wouldn't even be into potential profit till like 2 to 3 weeks in, depending on how good or bad drivers took off a week for vacation or they got sick. Like all that stuff went. I still had to pay $10,000 a month in insurance. So you don't really understand like the underlying cost of everything when you're running an operation that large, that it's really going to take a toll on your bottom line. So trucking rates, we never talked about in this video just because they vary, they jump. They vary based off of where you are. They vary based off the load you're carrying. They vary based off of distance you're traveling. If you're traveling 200 miles, they might pay you a certain weight, but they're going to make you wait at the pickup and delivery points. So you're literally sitting in a parking lot for 8 hours for $200. Like, and you had to spend $100 in fuel.
So actually, if you remember, that was actually one of the pieces that we were indifferent about when we first had our first little spat, was that majority of people, and what he's talking about, right? When he's talking about rates, a lot of people, they want to stay or have this thing about, you have to stay above $3 a mile or whatever it is, right? And he was stuck on that. I'm telling you guys, he would like, and this is majority of the clients I have, so it wasn't nothing new for me, but that had a lot to do with our friendship, or the beginning of our friendship, and our friendship lasting, is that I was able to convince him and get him into my mindset. Whereas I understand that that's important. I really do. I mean, I know numbers, but I was trying to get him to concentrate on the gross at the end of the week and the gross at the end of the month. And once you're able to do that and you meet your quota, now you can start trickling down. And basically what we did was we started working or analyzing backwards. So as you hear, we made it to our goal. But once we got there, we started worrying about or trying to focus on where were the fuel discounts coming from? Where were the discounts coming from factoring, because we were doing so high numbers? How can we leverage the truck payments, the getting more trailer payments, paying the drivers, all of that stuff. And it's very, very difficult to do that, on day one. And I try to tell everybody this. My way might not work for you, and vice versa. But I'm telling you, I've had more success with clients to understand gross first, make your money as much as you can. Then you work backwards and figure out where you can change or tweak what you need to tweak.
Yeah. And for everybody here, like I said, I don't think I mentioned this at all in the video, but over 2 years, this was 2019, 2018 when I started this. 2018, 2019, we did $550,000 in revenue over 2 years.
How old were you? So what was your age again?
I was 25, 26 when I
25,
started.
26, guys. Listen, you got to listen to that. 25, 26, barely knew half of what, he knew at that time. And then after that, or let's just say at the same time, he's coming up with the concept of hive mind. I mean, you got to, come on. That's it deserves that, because you guys out there, I know guys out there now that are hanging on by a mere thread with just one truck and thinking that the world is coming down on them. And I'm telling you right now, I would bet any kind of money that it's because of your approach to trucking. And I think this is what this video is more or less what it's about, is that your approach to trucking. Like he mentioned, we're not going to get into the rates. We're not going to get into what brokers you should be dealing with, if you should have a dispatcher or not, which I do have analytics on that. But you definitely want to, if it's not a dispatcher, then get with somebody or team up with somebody that has the ability to, I would say, for lack of better terms, has the ability and has the smarts to get in and out of the issues that you may find yourself in. It's not necessarily a person that knows it all or is perfect, but just somebody that has the intelligence that can guide you in and out of those circumstances and get out as less scathed as possible.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't regret going down this path at all. I mean, I learned so much about management. I mean, hiring, firing. I had to fire my first employee. It's never fun, but you have to do that.
Now that's a story you should have told. That was when you speak about relationships and you speak about this trucking industry and finding drivers. That was the story you should have told.
I don't even remember that. Honestly, I don't even know what story you're talking about.
Well, what you just said, firing your friend. Remember the first guy
Oh yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that story.
That was, and that even left me speechless when he told me, even afterwards, because it had a rippling effect.
Yeah.
Personally, professionally, and personally. And that's what I go on by telling you guys, relationships, right? Relationships are key, especially in the trucking industry. You got to team up with somebody that knows, but that's somebody you can trust, and somebody that's going to, I mean, me and Daniel, and I'm going to say it again. It's probably my third time saying this. Me and Daniel would not have went through all of that and then came out on the other end and still being friends, if it wasn't for me finding some way for him and I to get on the same frequency, get on the same accord. And that's how it happened.
Yeah. So, like I said, I learned a lot going through this. For everybody, the story you're talking about, I hired a friend of mine that worked with me at my old company. I hired him. He refused to work. I ended up losing like $7,000 off of that one, and never pulled one load. It was crazy. I think one of the reasons why I went down was the people I partnered with. They took me down. That nobody could carry their weight, or they weren't as determined as I was. So they're the ones that eventually brought me down. But a lot of this, like I said, I learned a lot. I went through a lot of different experiences. I went through a lot of drivers. Like I said, and I got a friend out of it. It makes me and Keith been with this for 5 years. I do have one final picture I want to show you this. So this was when I left Georgia. This is actually my truck. Last time I drove it, and this is the last time I drove a truck in general. With like full circle. It's the last truck I drove, first truck I drove, and this is my trailer. I ended up loading up all my stuff into this from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I moved to California. I moved all my stuff cross country in one of my own truck and trailers. And that's how I ended up in California. But that was the last time I drove that truck, and that was the last truck I drove, semi-truck in general. I let my CDL go about a year ago, and I'm like, never again. If I let it go, I let it go. But like I said, it kind of comes full circle. And like I said, I enjoyed every part of it. Like I said, it gave me a lot of life lessons. I learned a lot from business. I learned a lot from troubleshooting and dealing with issues on the daily. For everybody that doesn't know, trucking is a 24/7 job. As if you're the owner or the operator, it's a 24/7 job, because I had drivers working on Thanksgiving, I had drivers working on Christmas, New Year's, I had drivers working. If issues go down, who do they call? They call the boss. So it teaches you to troubleshoot fast, because a lot of times, like, these drivers, they don't understand that I need this fixed now. And I'm like, you might have to wait till the morning. It is what it is.
Can I interject with a question?
Yeah.
So it may hit home a little bit, but I want you to just take a minute to think before you answer. In hindsight, and this is, let's just say this is an adjacent universe, right? We're in a multi-universe. There's a whole nother universe. If you had not had the vision for Hive Mind, and you had the ability to just continuously stay focused at that moment where we didn't go into detail, like I said, guys, we didn't go into detail about, once we hit our 5 truck goal, and then the decline from there. But Daniel knows what I'm talking about. At that point, at that apex, if you had the chance to devote and go back to devoting 100% into the trucking company, where do you think it would have went from there? Think we still be working?
No, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think a lot of people they am I muted? Okay. I think a lot of people you question how much work it's going to take, and you don't realize the struggle and effort it's going to really take to get where you want to go. And I think a lot of this determination is what led me down this path to create something even better. Is that I went through a lot of pain through trucking, a lot of pain. Like, I didn't talk about a lot of stuff, but I kind of gave you the highlights and some of the key points. But there's so much. I went through a lot of growing pains, and it was like based off of my inexperience as an entrepreneur, inexperience as a adult dealing with stuff I've never had to deal with. A lot of there was just so much growing pains that I went through mindset wise, that I'm glad I went through them, because it forced me to put everything that I have into what I'm building at that time. And I took that same energy and put it in the Hive Mind, which is everybody here. If you listen to this, you're a product of the issues I went through trucking. It's the reason this is even established now, is all this stuff came about because the putting in the effort it really takes to produce something.
Cool. Okay, guys. There you have it.
Hey Keith, what is your quote that you really want to say for this episode?
I would say that my number one quote right now comes from Deion Sanders. You guys should know who he is. He's trending, the newest head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. And that quote is, relationships promote respect. Respect provokes a response, and a response breeds results. You gotta let that sink in.
This kind of brings up another quote that you said to me, because I think you mentioned it right after I got off the trucking. Was I think you quoted me when I said it, was, I'd rather ruin my credit than my credibility.
Yes, that was a good one. Yes. And I still live by that one as well. And again, guys, you can take this, outside of trucking, inside of trucking, lifelong lessons.
Yeah. I remember I just said that one to you, and you screenshot it and you put out one of your little cards, and I'm like, okay, I'll take that one. I'll take that W. Thanks, guys. For everybody here, man, if you're looking to start into trucking, man, just make sure you go about the facts, man. It's not going to be, might not be all green and roses, but it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of capital. It takes a lot of pressure dealing with such situations. Sacrifice. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. Make sure you're well capitalized. Make sure you understand what you're diving into. Make sure, this is for every business venture, man. Just do all you can while you can. You won't regret it later.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't mind me bringing up a point reason why I'm throwing out sacrifice so much. I mean, so there was a point where Daniel never complained. He didn't complain a lot. But let's go back to the day cab and his pregnant wife. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a point where she had to go to the hospital. You were just getting back from Maine.
Yep.
And I booked that load, and it was a lot of money. I bring this up because, like I said, the sacrifice, right? I've got clients now that would tell me, hell no, and they just won't do it, right? And then the next week later or next month later, they're a month behind on their payments. their livelihood is all going to crap, and then they're trying to play catch up, and their anxiety is at an all-time high, right? But luckily nothing happened, right? Let's just say, thank God nothing happened. But Daniel sacrificed, made that money, came back, and then still took care of what he needed to take care of at home. And I really, to this day, I mean, even when you did it, I told you, right? I was really, really proud of him and happy that he did that. God forbid we know that nothing happened, but just saying, what if he had that mindset and he didn't? Well, I don't know if our stories would be talking like this. It could have ended up, because it was a lot of money going to Maine. That was a good payoff, going up there and coming back in a day cab, mind you. So sacrifice is really big. I'd be remiss if I didn't say this to you guys. Daniel, please, in the comment section or whatever, put my email address and phone number, business phone number. And if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you can give me a call. If you just want to call and get to know a little bit more details of what we didn't throw in there, I'm pretty sure I get the green light from Daniel to chop it up and have those stories, because like he said, he learned. And a lot of times we should hear these stories, what we did in the past or what we went through, so that others don't have to go through it, or they can learn from it and pivot another way. Feel free to give me a call. I'm open to working with anybody that really wants to work. If you're just trying to get a quick check, I can tell you right now, transportation is not it. You'll have a better chance of working at McDonald's. If you do want to, get into transportation and you need some help or got some questions, I'm your guy.
For everybody here that made it to this point, maybe this wasn't a regular video. Like I said, it wasn't meant to be a regular video, but I appreciate you listening in. And like I said, this is my story, and this is my story I wanted to tell. And I hope you all enjoyed that. And I will see you for the next episode, because we're always talking about cool and interesting stories. So this is just another one of those, but this is my story that I wanted to tell. So thank you, Keith, for coming on. Thanks for participating in this one. I know getting him on cameras was an ask. So I appreciate him doing that for me. But like I said, I hope you all enjoyed this episode. Like I said, we'll see you on the next episode. Go like, share, subscribe, share this with your friends. Like I said, this whole video is meant to help people to really understand the truth about trucking and the goods, the bads, the lows, the highs, and what can come about it if you do it. So if you're already there, please watch it to the end, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching this YouTube video. We hope you found value. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Watch more videos just like this one.